Captain Sarah Chen stood tall on the bridge of the UES Defiant, her eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space before her. The ship's worn metal walls creaked and groaned, a constant reminder of its age. Outside the view screen, the glittering spires of the Galactic Union's Central Space Station loomed large. "Captain, we're receiving the docking instructions," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his console, his voice tinged with nervousness. Sarah nodded, her jaw set in determination. "Take us in, nice and easy." As the Defiant approached its assigned berth, Sarah couldn't help but notice the sleek, shimmering vessels of other species. Their hulls gleamed with energy fields and strange materials unknown to human science. In comparison, the Defiant looked like a relic from a forgotten age. The moment they docked, Sarah's comm unit buzzed. "All captains report to the Grand Chamber for the opening ceremony," a bored voice announced. Sarah straightened her uniform and addressed her crew. "Remember, we represent all of humanity here. Hold your heads high." As she walked through the station's pristine corridors, Sarah felt the stares and heard the whispers. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms pointed at her ship. "Look at that ancient heap of metal," one of them said in badly accented English. "I'm surprised it didn't fall apart on the way here." Sarah clenched her fists but kept walking. This wasn't the first time she'd heard such comments, and it wouldn't be the last. The Grand Chamber was a massive circular room filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. Sarah found a seat near the back, trying to ignore the snickers and sideways glances. A holographic image of High Counselor Zixtal, a squid-like being with shimmering tentacles, appeared in the center of the room. "Welcome, esteemed members of the Galactic Union," it began. "We gather here to discuss the threat of the Void Horde and plan our defense." As various alien captains stood to offer suggestions, Sarah listened intently. The Void Horde, a mysterious race of energy beings, had been pushing into Union space for months. So far, nothing had been able to stop them. Finally, Sarah raised her hand. The room fell silent, and she could feel hundreds of eyes on her. "The human fleet may be older," she began, her voice strong and clear, "but we have experience fighting against overwhelming odds. We suggest a flanking maneuver using the gravity wells of nearby stars' toe." A burst of laughter cut her off. A tall, reptilian alien stood up, his scales shimmering with amusement. "You expect us to take advice from a species whose ships belong in a museum? Your fleet is a joke." More laughter filled the chamber. Sarah felt her cheeks burn, but she stood her ground. "Our ships may be old, but they're sturdy and reliable. We've survived wars and disasters you can't even imagine." The reptilian alien sneered. "Survived? You barely cling to existence. Your homeworld is lost. Your colonies are failing. Face it, humans are a dying race." Sarah's hand instinctively went to the Earth pendant she wore around her neck. The loss of their homeworld still stung, even after all these years. High Counselor Zixtal's tentacles waved for silence. "Thank you for your input, Captain Chen. However, we will be proceeding with the Arcosian battle plan." As the meeting continued, Sarah sat in silence, her mind racing. She knew the Arcosian plan was flawed. It didn't account for the Void Horde's ability to phase through solid matter. But no one would listen to a human. After the ceremony, Sarah walked slowly back to her ship. As she passed a viewport, she paused to look out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Horde was coming. And despite all the advanced alien tech surrounding her, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's old, reliable ships might be more important than anyone realized. Back on the Defiant, her crew looked at her expectantly. "What's the word, Captain?" Rodriguez asked. Sarah took a deep breath. "Prepare for departure. We're going to do some routine patrols along the border of Void Horde territory." "But Captain," her first officer protested, "those weren't our orders." Sarah's eyes glinted with determination. "No, they weren't. But someone needs to see what's really going on out there. If no one else will listen to us, we'll just have to find the evidence ourselves." As the crew rushed to their stations, Sarah settled into her captain's chair. She patted the worn armrest affectionately. "Don't worry, old girl," she whispered to her ship. "We'll show them what humans can do." The Defiant's engines hummed to life, a sound that to Sarah was more beautiful than any sleek alien vessel. As they pulled away from the station, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Let them laugh now. Soon, they'd see what humanity's outdated fleet was really capable of. The UES Defiant drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its sensors scanning for any sign of the Void Horde. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her chair on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. The stars streaked by as they patrolled the border of known space. "Anything yet, Rodriguez?" Sarah asked, trying to keep the impatience out of her voice. Lieutenant Rodriguez shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. It's been quiet for the past 72 hours. Sarah frowned. The Void Horde couldn't have just disappeared. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, the ship's computer beeped urgently. "Captain," called out ensignly from her station. "I'm picking up strange energy readings. They're coming from the direction of Earth's old solar system." A hush fell over the bridge. Earth, humanity's lost homeworld. The mere mention of it brought a mix of pain and longing to every human's heart. "Show me," Sarah ordered, leaning forward in her chair. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the bridge. It showed a pulsing blob of energy, centered on where Earth's solar system used to be. "What in the world?" Sarah muttered. "Rodriguez, get me a connection to Galactic Union Command. They need to see this." As Rodriguez worked to establish a connection, Sarah studied the readings. The energy signature was unlike anything she'd ever seen before. It wasn't Void Horde tech, that was for sure. But it wasn't any known human or alien technology either. The face of Admiral Zextol, a stern-looking Marcosian, appeared on the screen. "This had better be important, Captain Chen," he growled. Sarah quickly explained what they had found. As she spoke, she could see the Admiral's expression change from annoyance to surprise, and then to suspicion. "You will hold your position, Captain," Admiral Zextol ordered. "A fleet of our most advanced ships will investigate this anomaly." Sarah felt her heart sink. "But sir, with all due respect, this is in Earth's old solar system. Shouldn't humans be the ones to?" "You will hold your position," the Admiral repeated, his voice cold. "That's an order, Captain." The screen went dark. Sarah sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She looked around at her crew, saw the same mixture of curiosity and determination in their eyes that she felt. "Orders, Captain," Rodriguez asked quietly. Sarah took a deep breath. What she was about to do could end her career, but some things were more important than following orders. "Plot a course for the Sol system," she said firmly. "Maximum speed." As the Defiant turned and its engines flared to life, Sarah's mind drifted back to the stories her grandmother used to tell her. Tales of Earth, of the final days before the Great Exodus. There had always been rumors, whispers of a secret project, a last-ditch effort to save humanity. But that's all they had ever been, rumors. Until now. As they raced towards Earth's old solar system, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something big, something that could change everything. Hours passed. The crew worked in tense silence, all too aware of the risk they were taking. Finally, Rodriguez spoke up. "Captain, we're approaching the outer edge of the Sol system." Sarah nodded. "Slow to half speed. Activate all scanning systems. I want to know everything that's out there." As they entered the system, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This was humanity's birthplace, abandoned centuries ago when Earth became uninhabitable. Yet now, something was stirring here. "Captain," Ensign Lee called out, "I'm detecting a massive structure orbiting Mars." The view screen shifted, showing a huge dark object. It was clearly artificial, but its design was like nothing Sarah had ever seen before. It's sending out a signal," Lee reported, her voice filled with awe. "Captain, I think it's trying to communicate with us." Before Sarah could respond, the ship's systems suddenly came to life. Screens flickered, displaying strange symbols and diagrams. A deep, resonant hum filled the air. "What's happening?" Sarah demanded, gripping the arms of her chair. Rodriguez's fingers flew over his console. "Captain, the ship, it's responding to the signal. It's like they recognize each other." As the humming grew louder, Sarah felt a strange sensation, as if something vast and ancient was waking up. She stared at the mysterious structure, her heart pounding. "Send a message to Galactic Command," she ordered. Tell them we found something big." As Rodriguez relayed the message, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The aliens had mocked humanity's old ships, called them relics. But now those same relics might have just unlocked a power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The adventure was only beginning. The UES Defiant hung in space near the mysterious structure orbiting Mars. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the massive object on the view screen, her mind racing with questions. "Any response to our hails?" she asked, breaking the tense silence on the bridge. Lieutenant Rodriguez shook his head. "No, Captain. But the structure is still sending out that strange signal." Sarah nodded, her face set with determination. "All right, we're going in for a closer look. Ensign Lee, scan for any kind of docking bay or entrance." As the Defiant slowly approached the structure, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The massive object seemed to pulse with an inner light, as if it were alive. "Captain," Ensign Lee called out suddenly, "I'm detecting an opening on the structure side. It just appeared out of nowhere." Sarah leaned forward in her chair. On screen, the view screen zoomed in on a large, circular opening that had indeed seemed to materialize out of thin air. It glowed with a soft blue light, almost inviting. "It's big enough for the Defiant to enter," Rodriguez noted, his voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. "Take us in, nice and slow," she ordered. As the Defiant glided into the opening, the crew held their breath. They passed through some kind of energy field and suddenly found themselves in a vast, cavernous space. "My God," Sarah whispered. The interior of the structure was unlike anything they had ever seen. It seemed to stretch on forever, filled with strange machinery and glowing energy conduits. But what caught Sarah's attention were the ships. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, lined the walls of the cavern. They were sleek, powerful-looking vessels, far more advanced than anything in the current human fleet. Are those human ships?" Rodriguez asked in awe. Before Sarah could answer, a holographic image flickered to life in front of them. It showed an older man in an outdated military uniform, his face lined with worry and determination. "If you're seeing this message," the hologram began, "it means that humanity has finally returned to the Sol system. I am Admiral James Chen, and this is Project Phoenix." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. James Chen, her great-grandfather, the hero of the last stand of Earth, who had stayed behind to buy time for the evacuation ships. In the final days before Earth fell, the hologram continued, "We realized that conventional weapons would never be enough to save us. So we created something new, something that would give humanity a fighting chance, no matter how long it took." The hologram gestured to the ships around them. "These vessels are more than just ships. They're a fusion of our most advanced technology and human consciousness. Each one is powered by the mind of a volunteer. Heroes who chose to sleep for centuries, waiting for the day they would be needed." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. These ships, they were alive. To activate the fleet, the hologram of Admiral Chen said, a human captain must sync with the main control system. But be warned, once sensed, your consciousness will be linked with the entire fleet. It's a huge responsibility, and not one to be taken lightly. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the crew of the Defiant in stunned silence. Sarah stood up slowly, her mind whirling with the implications of what they had just learned. A secret fleet, hidden for centuries. Ships powered by human minds. It was almost too much to take in. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "what do we do now?" Before Sarah could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the Defiant. Multiple ships entering the system. Ensign Lee shouted. It's the Void Horde. A massive fleet, heading straight for Mars." Sarah's eyes widened. The Void Horde, here. Now. She looked at the advanced ships surrounding them, then back at her crew. "We need to activate this fleet," she said firmly. "It might be our only chance." "But Captain," Rodriguez protested, "you heard the message. Sensing with the control system could be dangerous." Sarah nodded grimly. "I know, but we're out of options. Prepare to dock the Defiant. I'm going in." As her crew rushed to follow her orders, Sarah stared at the massive fleet around her. In just a few minutes, she would be linking her mind with centuries-old technology and the consciousness of long-dead heroes. The fate of humanity, perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested on her shoulders. "Hold on, Grandpa," she whispered. "I'm coming." Sarah Chen stood before the massive control panel, her heart pounding in her chest. The room hummed with energy, lights blinking across countless screens. Behind her, the crew of the Defiant watched nervously. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Rodriguez asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the central console. "We don't have a choice. The Void Horde is coming, and this fleet might be our only hope." Taking a deep breath, she placed her hand on the glowing panel. Instantly, she felt a jolt of energy course through her body. The room around her seemed to fade away, replaced by a vast, swirling sea of light and information. Voices whispered in her mind, hundreds of them, thousands, the consciousness of every ship in the fleet reaching out to her. Sarah gasped, overwhelmed by the flood of sensations and memories. "Hello, Sarah," a familiar voice said. She turned, finding herself face to face with a ghostly image of her great-grandfather, Admiral James Chen. "Grandpa," she whispered, her voice shaking. The image smiled. "Not quite. I'm an echo, a part of the system's eye. But I carry his memories, his knowledge. And now, I'm here to guide you." Sarah's mind reeled. "The Void Horde is coming. We need to activate the fleet." "It's not that simple," James said, his expression grave. "These ships, they're not just machines. They're alive, in a way. Each one is powered by the mind of a volunteer who chose to sleep for centuries. To awaken them is to bring them back to a world they won't recognize." Sarah felt a wave of guilt wash over her. "But we need them. The whole galaxy needs them." James nodded. "I know. But you must understand the responsibility you're taking on. Once awakened, these ships, these people, will be linked to you. Their hopes, their fears, their very lives will be in your hands." I understand," Sarah said, though her voice trembled. "Then it's time," James said. "Reach out with your mind. Feel the fleet. And wake them up." Sarah closed her eyes, concentrating. She could feel them now, hundreds of sleeping minds. With a mental push, she sent out a call, willing them to wake. One by one, the ships began to stir. In the physical world, lights flickered to life across the massive hangar. Engines hummed, systems booted up. And in Sarah's mind, voices began to speak. "Where am I? How long have we slept? Is it time? Are we needed?" Sarah felt overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face as she experienced the confusion, fear, and determination of hundreds of minds awakening after centuries of sleep. "It's okay," she sent out mentally, trying to project calm and confidence. "You're safe, but we need your help. Earth is gone, but humanity survives. And now we face a threat that could destroy everything." She felt their shock at learning of Earth's fate, their sorrow for all that had been lost. But then, a wave of determination swept through the fleet. "We are with you," The voices said as one, "We will fight." In the physical world, Sarah opened her eyes. The crew of the Defiant stared at her in awe. Through the view screen, they could see the massive hangar coming to life, ships powering up one by one. "Captain," Rodriguez said hesitantly, "are you all right?" Sarah turned to face her crew, her eyes glowing with an inner light. When she spoke, her voice seemed to echo with the power of hundreds. "I am more than all right," she said. "I am the fleet, and we are ready." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the structure. On the screens, they could see the Void Horde ships entering the system, a vast armada of darkness approaching Mars. Sarah felt a surge of power flow through her. With a thought, the hangar doors began to open. The fleet, her fleet, was ready for battle. "Crew of the Defiant," she said, her voice resonating with authority, "return to the ship. We're going to show the Void Horde what humanity is truly capable of." As her crew rushed to obey, Sarah turned her attention to the approaching enemy. She could feel the power of the fleet at her fingertips, centuries of advanced technology paired with the determination and skill of hundreds of human minds. For the first time since the Void Horde appeared, Sarah felt hope. The human fleet might be old, might be mocked by the rest of the galaxy. But now, its true power was about to be unleashed. The battle for the fate of the galaxy was about to begin. The vast emptiness of space around Mars suddenly came alive with activity. Hundreds of ships, dormant for centuries, now blazed with power as they emerged from the hidden base. At their center, the UES Defiant led the charge, Captain Sarah Chen at its helm. Sarah's mind buzzed with the collective consciousness of the entire fleet. She could feel every ship, every weapon, every crew member as if they were extensions of her own body. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. "Void Horde fleet approaching," Rodriguez reported, his voice tense. "They outnumber us 3-1. Sarah nodded, a grim smile on her face. "Numbers aren't everything. Let's show them what these outdated ships can do." With a thought, Sarah deployed the fleet into a complex formation. Ships moved in perfect synchronization, taking up positions that seemed to make no sense at first glance. The Void Horde ships came into view, a massive swarm of dark, otherworldly vessels that seemed to absorb the very light around them. They moved with a singular purpose, their intent clear: total destruction. "They're firing," Ensign Lee shouted. Beams of dark energy lanced out from the Void Horde ships, aimed at the human fleet. But Sarah was ready. With reflexes enhanced by her connection to the fleet, she orchestrated a dazzling dance of evasion. Ships twirled and dove, narrowly avoiding the deadly beams. "Return fire," Sarah commanded, her voice echoing with the power of hundreds. The human fleet lit up as one, unleashing a barrage of weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Beams of pure energy, missiles that phased in and out of reality, and swarms of nanobots that could eat through the toughest armor, all legacies of Earth's final days of innovation. The Void Horde ships, caught off guard by the unexpected display of power, faltered in their advance. Several of their ships erupted in silent explosions, torn apart by weapons they couldn't comprehend. But the Horde was not so easily defeated. They regrouped quickly, adapting their tactics. A group of their largest ships began to merge, forming a massive cannon that crackled with dark energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Sarah cried out, both vocally and mentally. The human fleet scattered, but not quickly enough. The dark cannon fired, and a beam of pure destruction cut through space. Several human ships were caught in its path, disintegrating instantly. Sarah felt their loss like a physical pain, the minds of their crews suddenly silenced. She gritted her teeth, pushing through the anguish. "Concentrate fire on that cannon," she ordered. The remaining ships of the human fleet coordinated their attack, focusing all their firepower on the Void Horde's superweapon. Under the onslaught of advanced human technology, even the mighty cannon began to crack. As the battle raged on, Sarah found herself struggling to maintain control. The constant influx of information, The strain of coordinating hundreds of ships and the emotional toll of feeling every loss was pushing her to her limits. "Captain," Rodriguez said, his voice filled with concern, "your nose is bleeding." Sarah wiped absently at her face, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice shook slightly. "We can't stop now." Suddenly, a new presence made itself known in Sarah's mind. It was the AI version of her great-grandfather, Admiral James Chen. "Sarah," his voice echoed in her thoughts, "you're pushing yourself too hard. Remember, you're not just a conduit for the fleet's power. You're its heart, its conscience. Don't lose yourself." Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself. James was right. She couldn't just be a weapon. She needed to be a leader. With renewed focus, Sarah reached out to the minds of her fleet. She felt their determination, their fear, their hope. "We are humanity's last line of defense," she sent out to all of them. "Earth may be gone, but its spirit lives on in us. Let's show the galaxy what that spirit can do." A surge of energy ran through the fleet as every ship, every crew member was filled with newfound determination. The human ships moved with increased coordination and purpose, their attacks becoming more precise and devastating. The tide of the battle began to turn. The Void Horde's formations crumbled under the relentless assault of the human fleet. Ship after ship fell to the advanced weaponry and unparalleled teamwork of Sarah's forces. As the last of the Void Horde ships retreated or were destroyed, a cheer went up across the fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had stood against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen, and won. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Void Horde would be back, and the rest of the galaxy needed to be prepared. As she looked out at the starfield, now littered with the debris of battle, Sarah made a silent vow. Humanity would no longer hide in the shadows. It was time to reclaim their place in the galaxy. The legend of the human fleet was about to be rewritten. The silence after the battle was deafening. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen showing the debris-filled space around Mars. The remains of Void Horde ships floated alongside the wreckage of human vessels, a grim reminder of the cost of their victory. "Status report," Sarah said, her voice hoarse from hours of commanding the fleet. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his console, his face a mix of exhaustion and awe. "We've lost about 20% of our fleet, Captain. But the Void Horde, they're completely destroyed or in full retreat." Sarah nodded, feeling the loss of each ship and its crew like a physical pain in her mind. The neural link with the fleet was both a blessing and a curse. "Begin rescue operations for any damaged ships, and send out a message to the Galactic Union. They need to know what happened here." As her crew rushed to follow her orders, Sarah felt a presence in her mind. It was the AI version of her great-grandfather, Admiral James Chen. "You did well, Sarah," his voice echoed in her thoughts. "But this is just the beginning. The galaxy will never be the same after today." Before Sarah could respond, a priority transmission came through. The face of Admiral Zextol, the Arcosian who had dismissed her warnings earlier, appeared on the screen. His usually stern features were slack with shock. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice trembling slightly. We detected a massive energy surge in your sector. What happened? Where did you get that fleet?" Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "Admiral, the human race just saved the galaxy from the Void Horde. I suggest you gather the Galactic Council. We have a lot to discuss." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. As rescue operations continued around Mars, delegations from every major species in the Galactic Union arrived. Their ships hung back, watching the newly awakened human fleet with a mixture of fear and awe. Sarah stood in the grand meeting hall of the Defiant, facing a sea of alien faces. Some she recognized, others were completely new to her. All looked at her with a newfound respect tinged with wariness. "Members of the Galactic Union," Sarah began, her voice carrying the authority of hundreds of minds linked with hers. Today, you've witnessed the true power of humanity. The fleet you see before you is the legacy of Earth, our lost homeworld. For centuries, it waited, hidden and dormant, until it was needed most. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah could sense their unease, their fear of this suddenly powerful human race. "I know you have questions," she continued. "You're wondering if we're a threat, if this advanced technology makes us too dangerous to be part of the galactic community." She paused, looking each delegate in the eye. "Let me be clear, we are not here to conquer or dominate. We are here to protect. The Void Horde was pushed back today, but they will return. And when they do, the galaxy will need every weapon, every ship, every brave soul willing to stand against them." The Arcosian delegate stepped forward, his scales shimmering with agitation. "And we're just supposed to trust you. This hidden fleet of yours could easily turn on the rest of us." Sarah felt a surge of anger, but she pushed it down. Instead, she opened her mind, projecting her thoughts and feelings to everyone in the room. They gasped as they felt her determination, her hope for the future, and her unwavering commitment to protecting all life in the galaxy. "We don't ask for your trust," Sarah said softly. "We ask for your cooperation. The age of hiding in the shadows, of dismissing humanity as a relic of the past, is over. We offer our strength, our technology, our very lives in defense of this galaxy. All we ask in return is to be treated as equals." The room fell silent as the delegates absorbed her words and the emotions behind them. Finally, a small, insectoid alien that Sarah didn't recognize stepped forward. "I am Zixnath of the Hive Collective," it buzzed. "We have long memories, and we remember when humans fought to protect weaker races, even at great cost to themselves. If you truly mean what you say, the Hive Collective stands with humanity." One by one, other delegates stepped forward, pledging their support. Even the Arcosian, after a long moment of hesitation, nodded his agreement. As the impromptu alliance took shape, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges both from the Void Horde and from within the galactic community. But for the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer alone. The legend of the human fleet, once a subject of mockery, was now a beacon of hope for the entire galaxy. And Sarah Chen, linked with the minds of Earth's greatest heroes, would lead them into this new era. The battle for survival had been won. Now, the battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Mars, and the galaxy was a changed place. The UES Defiant glided smoothly into orbit around a lush green planet. New Earth, the new home of humanity. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport, watching as ships from a dozen different alien races bustled about, working together to build the first true galactic capital. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Sarah turned to see Admiral Zextol, the Arcosian who had once dismissed her warnings. Now he looked at her with respect, even admiration. "It's more than I ever dreamed possible," Sarah admitted. "A year ago, we were barely tolerated. Now we're leading the charge against the Void Horde." The Admiral nodded solemnly. "Your victory changed everything, but it also painted a target on humanity's back. The Void Horde will return, and they'll be gunning for you specifically." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders once again. Through her neural link with the fleet, she could sense the constant vigilance of the ships patrolling the borders of known space. The burden of command never truly left her. "We'll be ready," she said firmly. As they walked through the corridors of the Defiant, Sarah couldn't help but notice the mix of awe and fear in the eyes of the alien diplomats they passed. Humanity's sudden rise to power had shaken the galactic status quo to its core. In the ship's meeting room, representatives from various races were gathered. Sarah took her place at the head of the table, feeling the familiar pressure in her mind as she connected with the fleet's shared consciousness. "The Hive Collective has detected unusual energy signatures in Sector 7, buzzed Zixnath, the insectoid alien who had first pledged support to humanity. We believe the Void Horde is testing a new weapon. Murmurs of concern rippled through the room. Sarah closed her eyes, accessing the vast database of knowledge stored within the fleet's eye. It's similar to the dark energy cannon they used at Mars, she said after a moment, but much more powerful. Then we must strike first, declared Krelax, a reptilian warrior from a newly allied race. Crush them before they can use it. Sarah shook her head. A preemptive strike could unite the scattered Horde factions against us. We need a more subtle approach. As the debate raged on, Sarah felt a familiar presence in her mind. The AI version of her great-grandfather, Admiral James Chin, spoke to her privately. "You're doing well, Sarah," he said. "But remember, the fleet's power is both a gift and a curse. Don't lose yourself in it." Sarah knew what he meant. The neural link that allowed her to command the fleet with unparalleled efficiency also threatened to erode her individual identity. Sometimes, she found it hard to distinguish her own thoughts from those of the collective. "I haven't forgotten," she replied mentally. "But the galaxy needs this power. We can't let the Void Horde win." Back in the physical world, Sarah raised her hand for silence. "We'll send a small, elite team to infiltrate the Horde's research facility," she announced. "Volunteers from each of our races working together. We'll gather intelligence and sabotage their efforts if possible." The plan was met with approval, and soon the meeting dissolved into discussions of logistics and team selection. As the aliens filed out, Admiral Zek's tool lingered. "A year ago, I would have laughed at the idea of following a human's orders," he said quietly. "Now, I can't imagine facing this threat without you. But Sarah, I worry about the cost to you personally." Sarah gave him a tired smile. "The cost is high," she admitted, "but the alternative is unthinkable. We've given the galaxy hope. We can't let them down now." Later, alone in her quarters, Sarah stood before a mirror. Her eyes glowed faintly with the power of the neural link, and she could feel the constant hum of the fleet's consciousness in the back of her mind. She was no longer just Sarah Chin, but something more, a bridge between humanity's past and the galaxy's future. As she prepared for bed, a transmission came through. It was from Earth's old solar system, where research teams were still combing through the ancient facility. "Captain," an excited voice said, "we found something. Another hidden chamber, with technology beyond even what we've seen. I think it might be the key to defeating the Void Horde for good." Sarah felt a surge of hope, tempered by caution. Every discovery brought new challenges, new responsibilities. But as she looked out at the stars, at the fleet that stood ready to defend them, she knew that humanity was ready to face whatever came next. The human fleet, once mocked for its age, was now the galaxy's greatest defender. And Sarah Chen, linked with the minds of Earth's greatest heroes, would lead them into an uncertain but hopeful future. The battle for respect had been won. Now the battle for the fate of the galaxy continued.